and see.
Did they start the tour by the big old map or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I found a really sweet one. I'm like, oop, I'm buying
That is
that.
what
but
I
they do
had
have some
suspected.
new equipment.
2 minutes.
Mm.
Good morning.
Yeah, so that's good.
I looked through all the stuff and it seems like it's the same stuff they had talked about with all the biosolid stuff, the
The,
improvements they want to make. Is that, am I
Yeah,
reading that
pretty
right?
much,
Okay.
Yeah.
The non-residential,
Yep, I saw that. And this is the same one.
They did,
Kelly
yeah.
shared.
yeah.
Talking
Did
about
they,
how we were
did
needing
they amend that?
money to
See an
develop
amendment. I
and
wanted,
finish
I
those,
wanted
do
an
the projects,
amendment.
basically.
We wanted something to where
Our
down.
people
portion.
were briefing us whenever they
Oh.
were harassing our businesses. I mean, having
That's hard, you know, I was thinking about the math.
some sort of an
You know,
enforcement.
when math.
Well, you guys can request a report.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah, so
thinking
that's
about
what
the
I
fact
think,
that.
you know, he was asking them what we wanted, Jack.
60%
That's gonna be one of them.
plus, you know, usage.
Does that make sense?
I know
Yeah,
that
exactly.
it's not.
Because they should, they have to, if they're doing any kind of administrative or,
I don't know.
Yeah.
And all the extra
Exactly.
equipment
Permit.
we have and
I know.
they obviously have that. So it's not,
up and down.
But we understand what's going on. This
I don't know.
is,
it's not gonna be pretty, but it
Starting
is
to
what
make me
it
think,
is. Some-
I can see
Some other
why.
agencies doing it.
There's a request for us. to
yeah,
pay
it
more.
is.
I
It's
think
really
the
unfortunate.
problem is that we need to
Gave
make
up
sure
all
that
of our-
we are able to,
You know, but it's okay.
feel almost like
Well, the way-
shareholders and decisions.
Right?
Yeah, that's
What-
the
You know, so it's like,
joint advisory.
we can't do
But
everything.
this is
Don't
the
need-
joint advisory
really
committee,
want an
like,
FTE.
we don't
I
actually,
know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly.
we're not there to actually make
So I was
decisions.
talking with,
We can
Justin
influence the
yesterday.
decisions though.
Yeah.
So, but like, I mean, there's really nothing.
All righty.
You doing?
So at 6 o'clock, I'd like to bring the city council workshop of May 21st to order. And let's rise for the flag salute. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
you. Could we have the clerk call the roll, please?
Okay, Mayor Carter is absent tonight. Deputy Mayor Swatman,
Present?
Councilmember Baldwin,
Present.
Councilmember Davis,
Present.
Councilmember Fullerton,
Here.
Councilmember Hubler,
Here.
Councilmember McClemmons,
Present.
and Councilmember Roach. I don't see him on for.
No, I was notified here a little while ago that Councilmember Roach will be not attending and he would like to be excused. I would make a motion to excuse Councilmember Roach from this evening's workshop.
Second.
He doesn't, he doesn't, yeah. we don't-
Second.
I have a motion made and seconded to excuse Dan Roach. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Right, so the mayor's not required to be at the meeting, so he's, yep. Agenda items, we'll move along. We have 2 presentation discussion items tonight. We're going to turn the floor over to Interim Public Service Director Jason Sullivan.
I will be very quick on the first one. It's the presentation will be on kind of on the biosolids modernization project that we're proposing to do that needs to be done at the Sumner wastewater treatment plant. Doug Welch from Gray and Osborne is here to give that presentation and answer any questions that council may have regarding the project. And then I have a few ending comments once the presentation's over.
Good evening.
Oh.
So this is a follow-up to the site visit that we just had down at the treatment plant, where the operators took you through the plant and from front end to tail end and tried to highlight some of the issues that they're currently dealing with the biosolids side of the treatment process and the goals of this plant to, you know, upgrade some of that aging equipment and improve safety and air quality and energy efficiency and reliability and redundancy at the plant. Power. That probably helps. Guess I can just do that. Yep. So I'm just going to start off with a a brief overview of the plant, which, given that you were just down there, it might be a little bit redundant. And then try to highlight the areas of the project that we're moving forward with. Project funding, and then a quick overview of the next steps. So influent to the treatment plant from Sumner and Bonney Lake comes into the headworks through 2 separate influent sewers into 2 separate lift stations. They're sampled separately, metered separately. Then those influent flow streams are combined, screened to remove inorganics and, like hair and other things prior to entering the rest of the treatment plant. Flow then passes by gravity over to the 3 primary clarifiers here, which were originally the secondary clarifiers for the plant and were converted in previous upgrades. Their primary solids are settled out. The heavier solids are settled out before going on to the biological process. That clarified effluent then goes over to a splitter box that splits the flow between the 3 different aeration basins. And this is where the majority of the biological treatment for the liquid stream portion of the treatment plant occurs. You grow microbes in these reactors in controlled environment to a fairly high concentration, and they utilize oxygen to break down organic matter and nutrients in the wastewater before it's discharged to the river. Flow then goes from the aeration basins to the 3 secondary clarifiers that are along the river here. And that's where the solids that are in the aeration basin, those are all settled out and then returned back to the aeration basins. The majority of them are anyway. And then the clarified effluent, which now is down to about 5 milligrams per liter solids, whereas in the aeration basins, it's about 2,500 milligrams per liter. Goes over to the UV effluent disinfection system that doses UV radiation to the effluent flow stream and inactivates any microbes that might be left in the effluent. The effluent's then discharged to the White River. There's 2 solid streams that come out of this liquid stream treatment process that go to the solids treatment facility. The first is the waste activated sludge. So the solids that settle in the clarifiers, most of those are returned to the aeration basins, but because you're growing biomass to all the time in order to maintain a constant level of biomass in the aeration basins, you have to take the portion that is the growth portion out of the system and treat it separately. So though the waste activated sludge, we call it, is pumped over to the dissolved air flotation thickener that it floats solids to the surface there, and then they're concentrated at the surface, increasing their solids concentration from about 1% to 5% before they go to the digesters. And then the waste primary sludge, which is all the solids that settled out in the primary clarifiers, those go to a gravity thickener that then thicken those solids from a fairly dilute slurry to 5 or 6% before they're pumped to the digesters. Then those 2 solid streams go over to the anaerobic digesters, where in the absence of oxygen, you have a different consortium of bacteria that break down all those waste solids, and at the same time they're stabilizing them, so they reduce coliform counts, they reduce sludge volume, and vector attraction, so that later when it's used, it doesn't attract vectors like birds, etc. And it also reduces odors. And it will reduce the volatile content of the solids by about 65 or 70%. So you're reducing the amount of solids that you then have to all off-site. Oh, sorry. Oh, I guess, yeah. That works better. Then from the digesters, the solids are pumped to a centrifuge, which basically is just rotates at 3,500 RPMs and uses gravity to sling the solids to the outside of the machine, thereby thickening those solids from about 3% to in excess of 20%. Those thickened solids are then discharged to a storage hopper right adjacent to the centrifuge platform. And then in batches, those solids are pumped into the dryer that you saw today. And that dryer uses thermal fluid heater or thermal fluid to heat the solids to somewhere between 350 and 380 degrees. That thermal fluid heater uses natural gas currently to fuel it. The solids are then dried to in excess of 90% and discharged to the loadout bay, a truck in the loadout bay, and then the staff haul those solids over to a covered storage area. And they then move some of the solids out to the little enclosure that's outside of the plant, and public comes by and picks it up in 5-gallon buckets. And they also have some larger receivers that they distribute to in dump truck loads. And so that's kind of a rundown of the treatment plant. And then to highlight aspects and needs of the project itself. Its main purpose is to replace aging equipment with newer equipment that has better safety, energy efficiency, and reliability. I'll briefly go through a few of the items that are slated to be replaced. The first is the dissolved air flotation thickener. This was originally installed in 1987. It's probably beyond its original service life. It's a fairly large footprint. Currently, it has a limitation on how thick it can get solids and its capacity. So it's both limited in capacity, and by not being able to thicken solids to above about 5%, it also limits the capacity of the digesters. In addition, it has a pretty high energy consumption. Its connected load is between 60 and 70 horsepower. The newer equipment that it will be replaced with is a rotary drum thickener that will be about 2 horsepower. So we're significantly reducing energy demand and energy cost, and that is eligible for a PSE grant that we are applying for and working through right now to try to get that new gravity thickener or new rotary drum thickener funded. And the new rotary drum thickener will operate 24/7. The existing waste gas burner was installed in 2005. It is nearing the end of its service life as well. And I think it's about 3 or 4 years ago, to improve the treatment in the digesters and as well as reducing energy demands, the treatment plant staff went to intermittent mixing on the digesters. So they're only mixing them for an hour every 3 or 4 hours. And that's improved digestion as well as led to some energy savings. The disadvantage, or there is one disadvantage to that, and that is when the mixing system is turned back on, it releases entrained gas. And so that has stressed the existing waste gas burner a little bit and exceeds the capacity or comes close to exceeding the capacity of the existing flare. So it needs to be replaced to increase its capacity to be coordinated with the needs of the treatment process, as well as future growth. And in addition, this is an older candlestick technology that would not be allowed by Puget Sound Clean Air Agency anymore. It's kind of grandfathered in right now, but when we go to a newer waste gas burner, it's going to have to be an enclosed flare that does a better job on the emission side of things and will meet Puget Sound Clean Air Agency requirements. The existing dryer, again, has been in service for about 20 years. Around the same period, there was a number of this model of dryer that, or manufacturer dryer that was installed in Washington State, and currently there's only 3 of them that are left operating. So I think, a lot of credit to the treatment plant staff for maintaining this and getting the use out of it that they have. It has developed a fair amount of corrosion on the inside. They've gone through a number of pretty significant maintenance procedures on it to keep it operational. But it is really beginning to show wear. And so one of the main drivers of this project is to get this replaced before it fails, because if it fails, then we're hauling, Class B biosolids to the east side of the mountains in the interim until it can get replaced. It also has safety issues. It operates at a fairly high temperature, so it's pretty close to the flash point of the biosolids. And, some of these units that are no longer in service are no longer in service because they had little explosions. And one of them was out at North Bend, and after that pop-up, they never operated their dryer again. So safety is a big concern. There's also a lot of dust created because it's a batch system. When it evacuates the drum or discharges at the end of a drying cycle, I think you saw today that there's quite a bit of dust and heat that comes out of this unit. And then the outloading facility also has a fair amount of dust. So one of the goals of this project is to replace the dryer with a newer, more efficient technology, one that has a lot more safety features, one that will be operated continuously. So you won't have this rapid discharge of solids, and that will in and of itself help control dust, but there will be a lot of other features associated with this that help contain the dust. And the newer dryer system operates at a much lower temperature as well. This is just a slide of what the new Comline Sanderson dryer will look like. This is a fully automated continuous operation, so it can be operated unmanned, whereas right now those guys, they sit in the room and really babysit that existing dryer because of the safety concerns. Again, it has a lower operating temperature. Its materials are much more abrasion resistant. The entire interior of this unit is coated with the Hardox stuff that they weld onto like excavators for extra wear protection. And it also will produce a more uniform product. Right now you get a fair amount of dust and some larger particles. The new system will have a screening system that will recycle the smaller particles back to the unit to get them incorporated back into the biomass, and then the large particles will be separated out into a separate drum. It also is lower energy consumption, and we will be utilizing the digester gas instead of flaring it off. we will be compressing that and be utilizing that in the new thermal fluid heater. So the new thermal fluid heater will have two burners in it, two separate burners. One will burn digester gas and one will burn natural gas. So we should be able to reduce natural gas consumption by about 50% with this newer technology. And we also are pursuing a PSE grant for that equipment.
I have a question.
Yep.
So when the dryer, because I remember seeing the other dryer, and if you were to have that installed, this new biosolids dryer, is there a period of time where you will have to take some of that over the mountain when there's kind of a transition period?
There will be a period when
Okay.
a transition period where
Okay.
we'll have to haul Class B sludge. Yep.
Oh,
And so the construction project will have to be sequenced so that the new loading bay and conveyors are installed to allow that Class B solids to make it to the new loading bay while the rest of the facility is built.
gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Another item is the existing standby generator. So this was originally installed in 1987. In 2005, it was relocated to the solids building, and this is the generator that acts as the standby unit for the liquid stream portion of the process at that end of the plant. So the UV disinfection, the effluent pumping, that's on this generator. So this is a really critical piece of equipment. Under this project, this generator will be replaced with a newer unit. Right now, we plan that to be an outdoor unit in a level 2 sound enclosure with a sub-base fuel tank, which will free this room up for additional electrical room space. That will then serve the new dryer and will help with sequencing of this construction project. And
The new dryer, is it smaller than that big, huge one that you have right now?
physically, it's a little bit smaller. Yeah.
So would you be able to, like in the future, if you needed to get another one for some reason, you could actually put two in that room?
No, there's not enough space for that. No. But the new dryer is designed to operate about 3.5 days a week. So there's a lot of extra capacity in going to a longer operation.
Okay.
That it?
And yeah, okay. Yeah. So then also on the outside of this building if you saw where the fuel tank is, that we're going to expand the building that way too. And that's where the new thermal fluid heater room will be. So we're going to try to separate that for safety concerns as well as heat and noise from the rest of the space as part of this project. Polymer systems, there's 2 polymer systems currently, one for thickening, one for dewatering. We'll be getting new polymer systems for both the thickening and dewatering equipment. The existing polymer system for dewatering doesn't have enough capacity for the new centrifuge that was installed a few years ago. We installed it knowing that both that polymer system and the digested sludge pumps that feed the centrifuge didn't have enough capacity to match the capacity of the machine, knowing that at some point in the future, those systems would be replaced with pieces of equipment that would match the capacity of the centrifuge, the larger centrifuge that was installed a few years ago. And in addition, the new dry system or the new dewatering system will have a big bag, will be a big bag system. Right now, the operators have to load polymer in 50-pound sacks, and they're exposed to a little bit of that polymer dust as well as just the need to physically lift the bags. The new system will have a hoist set up and utilize big bags, so that issue with dust and as well as the labor to lift the sacks will go away. And both systems will be consolidated into the same space in the existing building. And there's a number of other things that will be upgraded as part of this project. There's significant modifications to the biosolids conveyance system that will need to happen in the solids handling building. The conveyors in there right now aren't set up to serve the new system, so that will all have to be rearranged. Currently, for the digester heating system, they get a fair bit of hair that accumulates in those digesters and then plugs the pump. So we'll be putting a grinder on the intake to the pumps to grind up those hairballs so that the maintenance is reduced on the pumps, and it'll help to protect those downstream pumps. The closest restroom is over in equipment building number 2. So we'll be putting a little restroom on the back side of the new building expansion, so they don't have to walk quite so far.
It seems almost strange, right?
Yeah.
A bathroom at the sewage
There's a
treatment.
sewage treatment
Whole
plant.
plant, there's no place to go.
Building number 2.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh,
And then we'll be constructing a new sledge truck loading bay that's going to have a canopy kind of level loader system that will have a curtain that comes down around the bed of the truck and contains all the dust, as well as a conveyor that will ensure you're maximizing the capacity of each truckload. To allow us to use digester gas for burning in the thermal fluid heater. We have to compress that gas. Right now, it comes out of the digesters at about 12 inches of water column, but to be able to burn it in the thermal fluid heater, you have to compress it up to 5 psi and also add some moisture removal. So there will be a compression and treatment system associated with the digester gas equipment, and that's part of what we'll be trying to get reimbursed from PSE for as part of the grant application. And I think at some point today, somebody mentioned the centrate storage tank. The current storage tank was originally a small gravity thickener that under the 2005 project was converted into a centrate storage tank. The growth of the plant since then has necessitated increasing the capacity of that tank. So the plan is just to add 6 feet to the walls of the existing tank. And then currently, to access the roof of the digester building, they have to go up this ladder on the outside of the building to get up there to do their gas sampling, to drain drip traps from the gas system and stuff. So as part of this, the new thickening system is going in on an elevated platform in the existing solids building, and we're going to cut a door in to the roof from that platform. So now they'll be able to access the roof area with all that equipment from within the building without having to go up that excess or outside ladder. And then, all the other ancillary piping and electrical systems and site work that go along with these improvements. So the current project cost estimate is about $16.5 million. The project costs are planned to be shared between the cities of Bonney Lake and Sumner in accordance with the interlocal agreement. So Bonney Lake's share would work out to about 9 million and Sumner's about 7.6. Both cities will be applying within the next month for the Public Works Trust Fund loan for the project. The application window opened on the 8th. I know Ryan has been working through it and is going to have a draft tomorrow that I'll review, and then we'll hopefully have it down to up to Bonney Lake next week for them to use for their application. Then we'll know whether we've been awarded funding at the end of August. Next steps. So after a fairly long process, we finally opened bids for the dryer procurement contract in April. We got bids from both manufacturers that were named. Comline Sanderson was the low bid at 4.9 million. Andritz was the second low at 6.2. So the city of Sumner is planning on going ahead and awarding the contract to Comline Sanderson at their June 4th meeting. And notice to proceed is expected in July, early July, which will start a phase where they'll be providing us with submittals that we can use as the basis of the design for the project. With final design then being completed this winter and project advertisement slated for about February 2025. Award would follow, probably a couple months later, and then completion probably in the summer of 2026. That, if you guys have any questions, any further questions?
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, so it says that the contract will be contract award to Sumner Public Works Committee is on June 4th. And then the contract award to Sumner City Council is June 17th, but is this going to have anything to do with the JAC? Are we going to have any of the decision making, or is this something like we need to make a decision?
Not for the procurement. So what Sumner did is they went ahead and purchased the dryer ahead of doing all the other work because it's a long time lead item. So this dryer procurement contract is Sumner pre-purchasing the dryer so that when we get into the actual construction of the project, that long lead item has already been purchased because it's going to take a while for it to get here. So if you did it as part of the project, it would be something that would slow down the project. So Sumner went ahead and did the procurement of the dryer first. And so it'll be on site once earlier. And then when the bid gets issued, it's already ready to go.
Is that prior to funding? So
Yes.
So the pre-procurement contract has two phases in it. One is the submittal phase, and that's for 75,000. And the other phase is the actual procurement and delivery. And the cities have the option to opt out of that second phase if funding doesn't come through.
Okay.
So currently we're awarding the contract, but we're only on the hook for 75,000.
And that was the 4.2 million.
4.9 million.
4.9,
Yep.
yeah.
And so the next test for the Bonney Lake City Council, as you'll notice in your packet, is a motion. We need a motion from the City Council authorizing us to submit the Public Works Trust Fund loan for about, as Doug mentioned, about $9 million. So that would be what we would be bringing back to council next week is a motion authorizing us, with the mayor to sign the application form and authorizing staff to submit the Public Works Trust Fund loan to fund our proportionate share of the cost of the dryer.
That just of the dryer or the?
Of the whole project, sorry.
Biosolids modernization project.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are we as a city getting the money from?
That's what the Public Works Trust Fund loan is. So it's a loan,
But to pay that loan back.
it would come from the rates over time. Like the way I kind of explained it, it's almost like when you take out a mortgage on your house and you pay that mortgage over time for those facilities. And it's for us, and it spreads that cost over a longer period of time. So it helps better with the cash flow. We have talked with finance, and I think Sherry's also recommended it. Sherry's on the line. I don't know if she's been unmuted, but we have talked with finance, and the rates can support paying that over time. The interest rate, I believe, is like 1.79%. So in the term of money, it's, it's kind of free money as it's not free, but it's very low interest rate nowadays. And that's what and then we would use the rates to pay that annual payment back over time.
I am unmuted.
You are unmuted. Councilmember
Yes.
McClemens?
Oh, sorry. I can't see the people. The thing's still up. So sorry. I didn't mean to talk over
We take
anybody.
the presentation down so she can
Thank you,
see us.
Mayor or Deputy Mayor.
I can do it, Debbie.
One each.
Yeah, real quick, what I was going to say is the idea of the loan is that our customers, citizens, if you will, would be paying kind of at the same rate they use it, right? So the people today aren't paying all of the project, and then the people who move in here 10 years from now would be paying zero of it. So the loan spreads that cost out over the people that would actually be using this bio solid dryer, whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well, basically people hooked up to sewer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sewer
Correct.
people.
Correct.
Not just-
Councilmember McClemens had a question.
Yeah, how much of this was in the rate study?
This was in the rate study. The rate study, because we didn't know if we would be able to get the loan, assumed that we could pay cash for the whole project. So by doing the loan, we actually would have a positive impact on.
I mean, this is what we had talked about for all those hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, that is, yeah.
So it's assumed in there. So, and we kind of looked at it both ways. Is that the best way to explain it, Sherry?
I believe I'm with Councilmember Baldwin here. I believe that we did talk about getting this loan as part of our rate study, correct?
Mhm.
And we spent quite a bit of time talking about it and the
Yes.
philosophy behind it.
Yes, I remember.
So all $8 million was in the rate study, not just the dryer.
Correct.
8.9, I believe.
And what was the reasoning that Bonney Lake is going out also for a Public Works Trust Fund loan and not just Sumner?
Because Sumner can only apply for from my understanding, their proportionate share of the project. And the payback for that would be from the ratepayers of the two jurisdictions, which is why the city has to apply for the other section of that and then use our rate study to pay back our proportionate share of that loan.
And we haven't done one of these, a joint one. Gosh, it was before my time. I want to say 15, 17 years. But this has happened this way before, where there was a major upgrade to the wastewater treatment plant, and Sumner and Bonney Lake both went out for a joint Public Works Trust Fund loan so that each city could pay their own proportionate share.
I also remember this being a part of many hours of conversation also. Yes, yes.
There's also a limit of $10 million for Public Works Trust Fund loan applications.
Okay.
And it was the 2005 project was funded this same way.
I mean, so nothing's gonna happen until the next meeting anyway, right?
Right. So we would just at this point ask the council whether they want us to put this on as a full council item or the consent agenda. We just didn't know where to place it on the agenda. And that's why I wanted to kind of say like the next, the famous question, what do we do with this and what's our next step?
There you go.
Next step is the motion to,
Basically, we're all here discussing it, so I don't see why we couldn't put it on the consent agenda since we're all literally having a conversation, except we're missing just one council member. So.
Councilmember Baldwin?
I do think it is a bit of a disadvantage that our two council members that are present did not was not here for the hours and hours of conversation. But I do support this being on the consent agenda. I know that this is something that is very desperately needed to make sure that things are upgraded there at the facility. So I don't know, those are my thoughts.
Well, as always, anyone, if they have further comment on it at that point in time, they can pull it off. Any one single council member has the option to pull it off the agenda if they still want to comment on it.
Do you remember what meetings it was when?
Mhm. It was all of the times that the guy named Chris came and talked to us about the rate study. And it's all in that.
It was last year.
It was a lot of
It was
meetings.
multiple city council meetings.
Yeah, but we were basically, like Sherry was saying, we were debating kind of first with the loan part of it of whether that it was okay as a city that we were going to take that on because some of us were in a disagreement over that, the city taking on loans. But when Sherry and Jason and Ryan were explaining just how that works out actually financially and benefit to the citizens, it made a lot of sense. And then I think the other part that would be in question has to do with, a point of contention had to do with our percentage of payment. We were kind of going back and forth with that. But really, when you're looking at the whole infrastructure, we really are that percentage as far as like the equipment that we use and all the extra things to pump things up and down. And the amount of users that we have too. So it's not as unfair as it looks. And so that was our hours and hours of discussion in
There's a
that.
Bonney Lake side
Yes.
of which we saw we went past the Sumner side. The Bonney Lake side is actually bigger than the Sumner side.
Not
And then
equivalent,
also
right?
by
Good.
taking the loan at below 2% payback, we were actually able, weren't we? Because wasn't it going to be like something like 12% rate changes over time? It was going to go up like 2%, 2%, 2%, like up to 12 or something. But then because if we took the loan, it was actually just going to stay more even so that the users wouldn't have to pay as much over time. We could keep the rate down
Yeah,
a
I'd
little
have to
bit
defer
better.
to Sherry on that. I wasn't part of
Yeah,
all.
was that it, Sherry? It
I
was
don't remember
something about that.
Yeah, I don't remember the
Sounds
exact
pretty close to
percentages.
that.
But yeah, Councilmember Hubler, if you look through anything that FCS came and presented at, that's the meetings that we talked about rates. But I agree, this loan, as Jason termed it, I would probably term it the same way, free money when you're getting a low rate loan that low these days. And then just spreading the cost to the users, the current users of the system for the next, I believe Public Works Trust Fund loans are 20 years. The people using the system would be the people paying instead of everybody being hit today with a massive cash item. If we paid cash for it today, you're going to increase those rates significantly for everybody to pay for it. But yet you may move out of the city and not need sewer here in 2 years. Well, you just paid rates on something that the users 18 years from now will continue to receive benefit from. So the idea of the loan is to normalize that over the users of that biosolid, whatever it is.
Modernization.
Okay, perfect. That part I don't know. The money I can help you with.
Am I hearing this going on the consent agenda or it doesn't mind? Either way is fine with me. I'm voting no on it, but it doesn't matter. Or consent?
Can I ask one last
Go
question?
ahead, Councilmember McCombs.
What if I don't vote for this?
That's
Then
whose question?
the project, the sewer treatment plant, I'll let Doug get into the details, but we end up having an impact at the sewer treatment plant, unable to treat our biosolids. And once you're unable to convert the biosolids into Class A biosolids, you're gonna have an increased cost to truck Class B biosolids all the way to Eastern Washington. So you would actually have an increased cost for our treatment plant operation without doing this modernization, in addition to all the safety and hazard risks that Doug raised. I don't know if Doug, if you have a better answer to that.
Yeah, I think that that's it in a nutshell. In addition, the existing permit for the treatment plant is for this treatment process. And so that would open up a whole new can of worms from a permitting standpoint as well.
In our agreement with them. So, you know, the first thing they would do is come tell us that you have to pay for it. If you're not going to, then it's a different conversation, right? We already agreed to that with that previous agreement.
Are we allowed to ask your opinion on why you said what you just said?
Well, remember I voted no on the original agreement. I have a problem with the split and the concept and, you know, all that kind of stuff, but that's an underlying issue. Very good. We're gonna put it on the consent agenda? All righty. You got that, Debbie? Okay, very good. Next council meeting? Okay. Next item of business, we have another discussion, presentation type item, which is resolution 24-31. I believe Jason's gonna lead this one also.
Yes, and I will
Excellent.
kind of move us through this as quick as I can. So we had brought this to CDC. There's been
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
He's leaving just for the fun.
we had brought this through CDC to talk about the future of boat trailer parking at Allen York Park. This has been a kind of a question mark ever since we've built Ball Field 5. What happens to boat trailer parking and some of the impacts that have been happening over at Field 4. So just as a way of background, so everybody kind of understands how we got to where we got today. We haven't really been able to figure out how the boat launch got built. The best we can tell is somewhere between 1955 and 1969, when Bonney Lake Boulevard was constructed, the street end was kind of pushed into the edge of the lake, creating kind of this end of road that turned it into a boat launch. 1970, and at that time, what was Allen York Park was just what we refer to as the beach area. That was the extent of Allen York Park up until 1972. 1975, 1971 we applied. 1972 we actually got the property through as a regional park using state grant funds to purchase the property that became what is now Allen York Park. In 1973 we began clearing for fields 1 through 3. Between 1974 and 1985, the only boat trailer parking was kind of in the area in front of the snack shack. Between 1985 and 2005, there was a 25 to 30 boat trailer parking stalls provided in front of field number 4. Around 2006, 2007, we acquired what was referred to as the Moriarty property, which is what now is what we refer to as the Ball Field 5 site. Between 05 and 14, the boat trailer parking was still primarily provided in front of field 4, but the area that's now field 5 was used as overflow parking for the park generally, and also for boat trailer parking. Between 2015 and 2021, we had about 45 to 50 boat trailer parking stalls in the area that's field 5, and 84 car parking stalls provided in front of field 4. When we removed and built the ball field on the Moriarty property, we removed the boat trailer parking and added the 26 stalls that are currently available in front of field 4, but we also lost the 84 parking stalls for vehicles in front of field 4 when we restriped it for boat trailer parking. We did present two options we talked about two options with the consultant. Option 2 is kind of what the design contract is based on, and it's based on getting us back to what we had when we were using the field 5 area, which is about 52 boat trailer parking stalls. Option 1 is about 24 boat trailer parking stalls.
Hey, Jason, can you just point out which buildings are which, please?
Oh, yeah.
So this right here in both of them is the senior center.
Okay.
This is the old city hall site that will be getting demolished.
Mm-hmm.
This is the modular, this is the sewer building.
So Deborah Jane is this way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there is a grant that we could apply for. We don't know if we'll be successful in getting it in later this year through RCO, up to $1 million for boating facilities, which includes parking lots for boating. The way the design contract is laid out is there's two phases. The first phase would be to get us to what we call 30% engineering, so we can have a really good cost estimate for what the actual construction would be. And then if we were awarded the grant and council authorized the funds, or council just authorized all the funds, we would move to final design and begin construction sometime in 2025. The money that we're using for this it's already in the budget. When the council adopted the current budget, they added about $500,000 to design and construct a boat trailer parking. In May of last year, we came to council and explained that it really wasn't enough to do both design and construction. So we're proposing to use part of that money, about $400,000, to get all the way through final design on a boat trailer parking lot on the old city hall site.
Question.
That was,
Councilmember Baldwin.
Is this design similar to what we had talked about where there's limited kind of entry point, a limited entry point?
yes, there would be one.
Controlled entry point.
Yeah.
Well, this other one is.
Option 2 is a little bit more refined because that was the one we were basing our design contract off of.
Okay.
But both of them would have a single entrance point that's gated that you would have to basically pass through in order to get into the boat trailer parking area.
Did you realize you missed your opportunity to put a roundabout on Bonney Lake Boulevard?
Is that, I don't know if that lines up with the future road or not, I forget.
That one does not. We did push the entrance over a little bit so it would line up with the existing street. Right now, we kind of have an offset alignment out there for the old city hall site. So as part of this, we would slide the driveway over so that the driveway lines up with basically 194th, I believe it is, off my head. So that creates more of an intersection versus that offsite alignment, which can create safety issues with vehicles entering and exit at this volume.
What's going to be the total cost, design and construction?
We don't know at this time.
Well, we have some ideas though, eh?
I don't have any ideas at this time. I haven't heard back from the consultant. We could have that hopefully by next week if ballpark figures, but I don't have a.
Well, yeah, but so in my impression, usually, any kind of and I don't know what design level this one is, the full construction cost is going to be a multiple of the design. And usually probably, I don't know, 4 times or whatever, 3-4 times. I don't know how much of this. No, so none of the design cost includes the demolition of the old city hall yet?
That's correct. That's already in the budget for this year. When council adopted the 23-24 budget,
That's separate.
there is demolition for those buildings, which we'll be moving forward with hopefully this fall to demo the old city hall site and some of the outbuildings.
So like a ultra conservative tight estimate would be a total cost of like $1.5 million or something for this particular boat trailer parking lot.
At this point, I wouldn't hazard a guess.
I know, yeah, that's what we kind of need.
Grant of 1 million, if we can get
Yeah.
that.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Is there a difference in cost between these two options and one has double?
Yeah, I would say there is a cost differential. Option 2 would definitely have more grading costs because you're going into that slope. Whereas option 1 is pretty much staying on top of the already kind of flat area, but then you're going to 24 stalls. And I don't know what the cost differential for those additional stalls would be. And right now we have about 26 at the.
So we basically take what is the temporary boat trailer parking there by field 4 and then ixnay that and then make a permanent parking lot if it was option 1 with the same, if not a little less parking, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question.
Wanted to make sure I understood.
So currently on the ballpark 4 where we're parking the boat trailer parking, how many stalls do we have there?
I believe it's 26.
So when this gets built, that will become ballpark 4 parking again for car parking,
Correct.
correct?
It would be restriped.
So if we go with, how many did you say right now? 30? 20.
Option 1 is about 24.
No, at
Oh,
ballpark
26.
4,
I believe it's
26. So option 1 only has 24.
Yeah.
So we've already lost 84 when we got rid of the Moriarty property for boat trailer parking.
Well,
So with
Those weren't.
50,
Yeah, there was about,
okay,
there was
so
about,
50, but now this is 54 for option 2. So we're getting that amount back. And then we can also be charging with the new gate system. We'll be able to charge for people to park in either one of these parking spaces.
yeah, yes, we would be able to charge.
So option 1, we're going to have even less parking than we have now. Option 2, we will be close to what we had when we had the Moriarty property.
Yes.
How, for public safety question, how has the boat trailer parking been going since the reduction? Have we gotten a lot of complaints about not being able to park their trailers with only 20 some? Or would that be Boyle, Officer Boyle?
Well, I would say for us, the biggest complaint we hear is the loss of parking for field 4 and the conflict between people wanting to go to a game on field 4 and not having parking.
I think her question is just, what has been the effect like this season as boating has now opened? Because we were able to hear lots of things from Chief Pryor. He would report to us what the biggest issues were. So we haven't heard any updates since it's opened.
I'm just wondering which option would be more of a benefit, because if right now they're having problems with ballpark 4 being too small for the amount of boat trailer traffic that we have in the summer, then I would say option 2 would be a better one, because it's also adding more parking on the south side as well. Of course, you told me the other day that we can add that same little parking lot in that little circle area, can go into the other side too. So a few more parking spaces right there in front of the senior center, just to the east of the senior center. So,
So one of the things I was looking at with this though is back to that total cost scenario.
yeah.
So, because I don't really care necessarily how we do it, because, right now we have a configuration that we're looking at $72,000 per parking stall, right? So that's what you're looking at spending in this project, plus or minus, is a prediction. But we have a proposal to spend $400,000 for a design, right? A complete design, going all the way to the bid package. That would be a done deal. But unless the council is committed to spending like whatever it is, $1.5 million or what have you, then, I would caution us not to create another thing that we're going to sit on the shelf. Right? So whatever we do, I think we need to look at the total cost of what it could be-ish, so that we have a path to get to completion. Because if we don't do that, we could spend $400,000 and then we could spend in the next 4 years arguing about where to get $1 million to build a parking lot at. And by that time, then the bid package isn't going to be no longer any good. They're going to have to go back and do it a little bit. It'll still be very valuable, but still, right? I don't know Jason?
I would say that's why we did split it into phase 2. So you don't have to commit the full 400,000. We split the design contract in 2 phases.
Mhm.
One to get to, so your
30% or whatever it is.
30% engineering.
Uh-huh.
And then one to get to the full design package. And
Right.
I will look that number up while AC Boyle talks about operational issues. We kind of changed topics real quick.
Okay. Our first sunny day we had, which I believe hot day, was the weekend of the 11th. And we had a lot of cars parked in where the trucks and trailers are typically supposed to be parked in ball field 4. This is a continual problem. It is a small enclosed area. It looks fairly big, but when you get a truck and a trailer in there trying to turn, last year we had trailers driving over the front of cars and I mean, it was totally a
Oh, yeah.
mess.
Mhm.
This last 2 weekends ago was another example of it being very difficult for us to do our job out there trying to mediate the parking issues between cars and trucks and trailers and the people who are paying for these parking spots who say they're, their annual boat passes
Mhm.
and they expect to be able to park there. They can get their boat launched, but then they go in there and they can't park, or they're trapped in there because somebody parks their cars in there. So it's for us to try to mitigate these issues is very difficult, yet we have our officers out there on those types of situations when they could also be trying to handle another call somewhere else in the city, which may delay them to get there, which causes frustration in and of itself. So there's a combination of issues that we're constantly dealing with at that park, whether it be one day, because it's nice. And then the next weekend, like now, we may not be having a big deal for Memorial Day weekend. But as soon as that sun pops out, we're right back at the same exact issue with the same parking problems and trying to alleviate these with option 1 and 2. I'm not familiar with these to be able to provide anything on that, but just to give you a little historical on what just happened over the last couple weekends.
Any of the officers at the boat launch parking area telling people, no, you can't put your car in here?
So at the boat launch, so security starts Memorial Day weekend. That's when we'll have our private security out there. The officers are not assigned just yet to go out there until Memorial Day.
Well,
That's-
the private security is the one that's going to be.
Private security, yeah. So they're going to be the ones out there at the park starting Memorial Day weekend. Our officers, we did schedule some to go out there for that hot weekend. As soon as we see them, the weekend come up, we try to schedule somebody out there to be specifically either traffic or whatever until we get into the actual summertime with Memorial Day coming up. So that from that point on, we'll have officers scheduled out there. So this kind of caught us off guard, which it usually does every year. You get that nice hot spike that comes in before you get the actual hot weekends. So no, we didn't have anybody specifically scheduled for parking enforcement that particular day, but we assign people as they're available.
Councilmember Baldwin?
I think the biggest concern in regards to boat trailer parking, whether we go with option 1 or option 2, is that there just has to be limited access with some sort of control point.
Mhm.
And we have to have some sort of system that talks from that gate to what's going on at the boat launch area, no matter what, so that people don't get into that predicament like you explained. So hopefully that is going to be a part of whatever the design process is in making sure that the technology
Yeah,
is going to be upgraded as well.
there would be a gate installed here. And at the same time, we would look to install the same gating type system down at the boat launch itself and get rid of the cabling system.
Right, where both systems are
Yes, that would be the goal.
talking to each other in some way so that the resident knows whether they have an opportunity to park or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Fulton?
Yeah, so bottom line here is, we have a big, beautiful park that we just added. We've got 120 roughly new parking stalls for that park. And then we lost all of our parking for the actual swim park area. But what we're looking at here with all of this money, we're looking at, probably in the millions for a parking lot. But I feel like if we complete this, then that's going to add parking at ballpark 4, which is across from the ballparks where they used to be able to park. So they can park there, as well as that would get them access to the swim park. Then we're adding a new parking area for the boat trailer parking and more parking for cars. So this to me is completing the whole entire picture, and then we can move on to go to Midtown or wherever we're looking at. I just feel like for so many years, we have a 20-year plan that nothing ever got done. And now we have these, our final phase for Allen York is getting parking for cars as well as parking for boat launch, which has also been the security issue with the people who live around the park because people are parking in front of their homes and in the street. So we've had to put restrictive parking around the houses and neighborhoods. I just feel like this, even if it's, you know, $1 million, we need to talk to Sherry and see if this is something that could be, that we can swing. But I just feel like this would kind of complete all of Allen York Park and hopefully for at least a future for people to be safe and also be able to have fun and not have to worry about parking. It's expensive, but we also spent $10 million on the ballpark 5 because we had to pay $6 million for that property, the Moriarty property, which was before I came around. So at least there's that. But
Councilmember Davis?
Yeah, I completely agree that this is something that I think needs to happen. I think one of the decisions we got to make is which option. And then in conversations with Jason too, I know that he had mentioned that there was a possibility of $1 million grant, but I think that comes with some stipulations also. That currently it's residents only that are used to launch, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we were to apply for and be successful in getting an RCO grant, our ability to say that the boat launch is only for residents only becomes not possible because the state is paying for
Yeah.
those things. So that thanks to Councilmember Davis for reminding of that. So that is,
yeah.
if we do get the grant, it would definitely have an impact on
Be open to all,
to anybody.
Yeah.
but they'd still have to pay for a pass, right?
Yeah.
Boat launch pass.
It would go back to the way it was in 05 is you would pay for you would pay at the kiosk to launch your boat and then pay to park in the lot.
Can we charge more for people who don't live in Bonney?
I think if we get the state grant, we're gonna have to keep it on
The same.
at least for the parking.
Mhm.
And maybe then have a pass for the boat launch that allows the boat launch to be at a reduced rate, but the parking, I think you would have to keep on a parity. There could be some differential, but it couldn't be like $1 for residents and $300 for citizens.
Right? Councilmember
Right. I
Baldwin?
think you could have a differential, but it'd have to be a much closer differential.
Councilmember Baldwin?
I just want to remind council too, that really like the parking is not really the end, because the last part is we have to figure out what to do with the launch.
Mhm.
The launch is a major problem and it's tiny and it's not made for all the huge trucks and
Mhm.
boats that
Yeah,
are coming
right,
in.
yeah.
So that's something to consider as well. The boat launches is not a safe launching site.
Councilmember McClements.
Yeah, so, how does this fit with the park master plan?
Plugs right in.
Is it?
This is kind of what the Parks Master Plan was envisioning that will come back to council. That's why we felt safe kind of advancing this as we're finalizing the parks plan. Is if you look at the final design for Allen York Park, it did envision putting, now granted, it was an artistic rendering of how it would go in there, but it did envision putting,
It's that planner in you.
yeah, the planning, you move from like, here's how it should work to then you get the engineers involved and, it kind of, things change, but it did envision this area being used for boat trailer parking.
In that really pretty rendering.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Right.
That was
Yeah.
my recollection as well.
I had a question. I don't know if Sherry's still available online. Did the committee touch on the future funding options for this piece, right? Since it sounds positive, and we might not want to go for the grant. We will go for it, but we might want to consider its implications. And then whether we had the $1.5 million in some fund to possibly pay for this construction.
So
How's
yes,
that
I'm
question?
still on,
Yeah,
but I
there you
think
go. Okay.
Jason has been,
You're hiding.
Jason has been working on this. So Jason, did they have a plan on how to pay for this?
If my recollection is correct, I believe there is money being accrued on the park impact fee side
Correct.
that would help to fund this project. I've been waiting for us to start talking about revenue projections, to see how close my numbers were. But I believe we'd be able to fund it using park impact fees.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably true. I can certainly check tomorrow. But utilizing that money for the council, that means your park fund still sits at about zero. So if you choose to use your money on that, then you still have a park fund of about zero.
You'd have to find other monies to do other projects at
Correct.
the times.
To finish the whole park, but we'd have boat trailer parking and parking.
Right, I was just trying to, make sure I'll get with Sherry and we'll try to figure out more with it, just to make sure that we have the monies available, right? Because otherwise, I don't know how much we're gonna spend at 30%. How much is 30%? Is 100,000 or something?
About 194,000 if I read the project. And then we can come back next workshop, or if we want to put this on the next council agenda as a full council item, we can come back with the answers. I can get with parametrics to try to get a ballpark figure between the two.
Yep.
And then get with Sherry kind of where we're sitting on park fund balance
Right.
between impact
Yep.
fees and other funding sources
Right.
that go into that.
Yep. Councilmember McClemens.
So what does what does $2 million buy me at Midtown?
Depends on how you want to spend it.
Roughly, it would probably get maybe one field.
One field. How about like a parking lot?
Yeah.
How much of a park?
Yeah, and you wouldn't have, I think how Sherry, do you remember how much we spent on Belleville 5?
Oh, gosh. It depends on how you count it, right?
Yeah, so that,
Yeah.
yeah,
4 or
so
5
that's,
million?
yeah, and that's what you would be looking at, because you'd have to do parking. We would have some savings because we wouldn't have the stormwater issue where we had to build stormwater vaults under the field for this one because we have the detention pond already built. But yeah, you're looking at maybe a field and some parking.
Yeah, because I still remember that we had, the grant was like under $1 million.
It's like 650,000.
Yeah,
Right.
for a project that was.
Yeah.
I thought it was 6 million if I remember.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, that gets me, of course, back to the little horsey that I've been riding about defining the problem. And if I've heard that we don't have enough parking spaces over at Allen York for boat trailers, right? So that's our problem. How do we solve it? Or do we solve it, right? Everybody
Well, yeah, I
wants.
just want to say for $2 million, right? I mean, I'm just trying to make sure that we ask all the questions.
And one thing too is, as the money that comes in from people paying to use the facility would be redeposited back into the park CIP fund.
What?
Probably maintenance on the gate.
So the
The boat
parking
trailer.
fee that's charged for people using the parking
Okay.
lot,
Okay.
the boat trailer parking lot,
Mhm.
that
Sure.
fee, that revenue, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
would be automatically deposited back into the park CIP for future park projects.
The 88, our sidewalks will be
ADA
88 compliant at
and
the
we'll have
same
parking
time we
spaces.
recover.
They'll coincide. It's the same
Little bit.
plan.
Yeah.
It's our 500-year plan.
Yeah.
Go, Councilmember Baldwin, sorry.
So I did have a question in regards to the agenda bill with the expenditure being $399,983.30.
Plus or minus.
Yeah. Is this amount then, and I know it was already part of the budgeting and all that kind of stuff. But with that money, that particular amount is just for parametrics to basically do all the engineering and design concepts, correct?
And get all the bid documents ready. so that
Okay.
We could put it out to bid for actual construction.
Okay.
Is that only for these two options, or is that also for like
Oh,
the
good
whole
question.
big
No.
picture?
No, it would just be,
Just for option 2, actually.
yeah, it's for option
Option
two.
2.
Because the direction that we had heard from the staff levels, we're wanting to get back to what we lost when we took boat trailer parking out of the Moriarty property,
Mhm.
why we advanced further with option 2 because it got to that 52 number, which is close to what was at Moriarty before we lost it.
Yeah, I think that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Councilmember. Bowman.
I think option 2 will just reduce a lot of headache. I really do.
Oh, yeah.
And if we're gonna go for a grant, let's just pretend, right?
Mhm.
Where we're okay with the strings that are attached. In option 1, and if we have to open up to more than just Bonnie Lake residents, like that's, they're never gonna be able to park there.
Right, yeah.
So unfortunately.
So I'm hearing that Jason Sullivan is going to come back at the next, are we going to schedule this then for the?
Yeah, it's up to the council. If the council wants to bring it forward to vote on it next week, I would recommend, since there's a couple questions that we need to answer as it goes on a full council, so
Mhm.
that we can provide those 2 last numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That the council can then make a decision. We would like a vote either up or down, just so we have clear policy direction as we move
Yeah.
forward, so we kind of know what the direction is from the city.
Oh, how about what's wrong with a sideways vote, right? Frankly, because if the funding level comes in and we're still unclear on how we're going to do the funding package, the council may
Postpone
divide it up a little bit, because if you say there's 2 phases to this particular proposal, there's a 30% design criteria, and then there's further on the full package, that there could be the nuance where the council wants to just go with the 30%
Yes.
to get really nailed down on the costs while they figure something out. So, Councilmember Baldwin?
and I know you said that we're not gonna be able to know some projections of costs until, Parametrics does their due diligence. But I guess my question then would become, if it were similar to kind of what happened with 5, and it is government, so I'm kind of saying, yeah, there's a possibility of that. If you get 1 million then from the government, and the project is way higher, let's say 5 million, I guess my question then would be, do we really want the government to have a grip on us for 1 million versus 5? Like, would it be that
That would be,
drastic of a difference, I guess? is what I'm
I don't think it would be that drastic of a
Okay.
difference, but we would also defer that question to council, because in my opinion, that's really a policy matter of whether or not the council wants to accept those strings for the life of the project.
Okay,
We can work, I'm gonna work with parametrics to see if I can get you order of magnitude numbers,
okay.
so that you can at least understand kind of, it's a
Like, what are we
$1.5 to $2 million project, or it's a $2.5 to $3 million
That would
project.
be helpful.
And then as we go through that 30% design, that's when we
Yeah,
can really
right.
refine it down to kind of the
Okay.
more construction level type estimates.
Councilmember Fulton?
Yeah, so Jason and I, we had our discussion on Monday and we discussed the original grant. And what was that circumstance where we literally have to keep it open to public?
So-
Otherwise, we have to pay that money back?
Yeah, so when we applied for the RCO grant back in 1971, we applied
thing.
as a city in 1971,
Yeah.
that the property would be a regional park, and there's a map, and I
Yep.
think I even showed it to Councilmember Davis and Councilmember Fullerton. It shows the region of the county out down into Puyallup that we're trying to serve with this park. And then we were required to record deeds on the property that said that the property that was purchased with the grant would remain open and available to the public as a park in perpetuity.
I mean, it is open.
So
to
we
the
can't
public.
close it. So if we ever
Well-
closed that park, then we have to pay back the loan at today's rate.
That would be my
That
understanding,
grant at
yes.
Today's rate. So, and that's perpetuity. So that's like from 1970.
Yeah, they're good about writing that language.
So just like when we're looking into grants, that's a good fine print to be looking at. But then also if we have the larger amount of parking spaces, then that would allow us to stay open for regional park as well. So,
Mhm.
which is what the original grants was.
Councilmember Hubler?
Isn't the,
Hubler.
Hubler?
It's Hugh.
Hubler.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I hear it all the time. The property there where City Hall, if I remember when we still had Parks Commission, that is not considered parks yet, so it wasn't part of the regional park, or is it part of the regional park?
For the most part, it's not. There's a little section on the back side of the park that was dedicated specifically to park use, kind of along that tree line along the northern side. But most of the old City Hall site was just city-owned property.
Okay. That helps us to not be under that
Mhm.
regional.
If
park.
we pay for it.
Yeah.
With our own funds.
Yeah, and then the Moriarty property was not regionally acquired with regional funds, but then we took a grant to build the ball field, which requires us to keep the ball field open, so.
Yeah, I pause on grants. Angela, that word pause, oh, you got it stuck in my.
Gives me
Uh,
some pause.
I do sit back and I look at grants as a double-edged sword because we, a lot of our trail systems had grants and there was things designed that had to be redone because of grants.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
It cost us more
Oh, yeah.
taking those grants.
Mhm.
Any further
No free
discussion?
money, right?
No free money.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Always a
But
stipulation.
I guess the song was wrong. There is no money for free.
Councilmember McClimans.
So boat trailer parking has to be ADA compliant?
Yes.
What would that
Okay.
look like?
Well, that's kind of a parking
What would
lot,
that
hard to
look
make
like?
not ADA compliant, right?
Well, I think that's designed.
Well,
in
it's all-
Option 1 or 2.
Gravel.
Oh, sorry, I thought he said
Five
boat.
truckloads of gravel was like not
Yeah.
$1 million.
Trailer parking.
The boat launch doesn't have to be ADA compliant, does it?
When the city does it.
If we were to rebuild one, it would have to meet certain ADA standards.
Okay.
Corliss does one on Fennel Creek that,
Okay, so, does that mean we're gonna put this on full council?
full council, next council meeting, and we're gonna have some information from.
We'll get better numbers. I'll work with Sherry and we'll get better
The 20.
numbers on the revenue and the
Right,
expenditure side.
excellent.
Very good. Thank you, Jason.
All right, we'll move along to the review of the council minutes. I believe, we have any corrections, Councilman Fullerton?
We
Yes?
did, and I sent the information into Candace. I went through,
okay.
so one of the changes wasn't technically made on these new minutes. So full disclosure, I emailed, so since it's an email, it's gonna be public record anyway, but I emailed them a picture of what I felt the changes needed to be. I don't know if I need to talk about it, but hopefully it'll get changed at the next meeting and we'll reapprove it. I need to say what I wanted changed or.
They are, well, they're not officially approved yet, right? We're just reviewing them and then they'll be on the
Okay,
next.
so then we're just reviewing them. So there's still changes that need to be made so that we can approve them for,
Okay.
on next week's.
Right.
I guess that's.
We'll just make sure they're made at the, when we have it
Councilmember Huber,
before
if
us
you wanna
next
see
week.
the changes that, after the meeting, I can show you.
Yeah, I read through everything and I was like, I don't see anything.
I'll show you what it was and then you can tell me what you think.
Okay.
Anyone else have any changes that they need to make? Seeing none, I will move along to the council open discussion. Any other discussion items the council would like to discuss this evening? Councilmember Fullerton.
Yeah, so I had a meeting earlier this week and I was asking with the PCRC. And so I was asking about the representation and it for the Pierce County Regional Council. So we haven't actually had any representation for about 4 months. I know that the emails are really easy to miss because they come from Danica Williams. Councilmember Roach is I don't know if it's a chair or just, just on the committee, what it would be considered, but I was hoping he'd be here tonight because he hasn't been attending and I feel like it's really important that we have representation there because there's options for grants and things like that. And plus, upcoming changes that are happening to the comprehensive plan, as well as like the 167 road changes. So I was just wondering if,
You're the backup though, right? Isn't there a
well,
backup? Is there an alternate?
Councilmember Hubler is
Oh,
the alternate,
Hubler.
but like if she didn't get the emails or didn't know that Councilmember Roach wasn't attending. So I was just,
Regional council, right?
I was wondering,
Pierce County.
Right.
if there's, if there's an opportunity,
Hmm.
I would like to chair that or be the representative for that, because it does kind of go right along with the CDC.
Sure, yeah.
But I wanted
Yeah.
to
Hmm.
speak to Councilmember Roach and see if he'd be willing to let me be the representative for that.
Right.
But I guess,
Yeah, find out and then find out. I don't know if Jason knows how we change that around if we needed to. If, you know,
So all city councils are select their representatives to sit on the PCRC. I believe all they would require is a motion from the city council, specifically identifying who the chair, who the representative is and who the alternatives. And then we do provide staff support to that person if there's questions about things that are coming up to the committee.
today's Wednesday. Do you know when the next meeting is?
well, it was May 16th, and that's when, or
It's
yeah, it was Thursday, May 16th. So it's the third Thursday of each month at 6 PM. And I usually would just attend
In person.
as, no, I always did the Zoom.
Okay,
And
yeah.
they haven't really been able to find a in-person meeting area because it's kind of all the cities, so they would have to drive somewhere. So now that they have Zoom available, I think they're kind of keeping it at that for now. But they will have
very
a
good.
place eventually if they can find a big enough room. They did want us at one point to see if we could use this room on a Thursday night, but that never got, the question never got asked. So anyway,
Well, we can get with Councilmember Roach and see
Yeah.
what his plans are and see, you know, if he wants to change that around, or would that be appropriate?
yeah, and Councilmember Hubler, I don't want to step over you because you're the alternate. So would you mind if I,
I don't mind. I don't get any emails from them.
Even
Yeah,
if you're the
through-
alternate though, you should
Yeah.
totally go.
Yeah, you think
Or
it'd
you
be on the
could-
same.
yeah, I
don't
went,
mind being the
so it was,
alternate, but
it's, you got to look under Danica Williams.
I looked under Pierce County Regional Council,
It's
under
PCRC. Did you get anything?
nothing from them.
I can see if the council does change up the representatives, we can send an email with both emails to the Pierce County staff that to make sure that those emails are in the system.
I'm still getting the emails, so that's how come I knew to ask. So I was like, oh, I wonder if anybody's going to this, because I was the alternate before, but I went every third Thursday of the month when I was the alternate, and when Councilmember Evans at the time was on there, he'd always tell me, oh, you don't have to be here if you don't want to. I was like, no, I want to understand what's going on. So if you're absent, then I know what's going on. And I'm just realizing now, after being away from it, that it has more to do with CDC than originally I thought. So I was going to ask Councilmember Roach if I could kind of have it back, but then I found out we didn't have any representation. So I was like, well, if it'll ease burdens on him, then that would be great for me. So
Excellent.
that's
How
just
do
the
I
question.
get added?
We'll have to talk to Sadie probably.
Okay.
Would it be Sadie or is it you?
Mr. Sullivan
Jason?
probably has contacts.
Yeah, I have contacts. I would just need to find with Sadie the night that the council voted to put.
Yeah.
January.
Yeah, to put Councilmember Roach and Councilmember Hubler as the representatives, and I can send that over to.
I know that
PSRC.
Councilmember Roach did attend that because it was like the very next Thursday. So he did attend in January, but we haven't had any representation for February, March, April, or May
Yeah,
as far as council.
and if the council does want to do it from like the Public Service Center, we could set it up so that I could be there as another staff member with the council member teamsing in from one of our conference rooms here at the city, at the Public Service Center.
Okay.
If you didn't want to do it from your
Noisy
house.
The question was could we find a big enough building so that all of PCRC could come and meet in person?
I think the
Bonney
panorama
Lake
conference
hosted?
room could
Would
probably,
be good. I
It'd
don't
be-
know how many people are on it.
They just don't want to drive probably, right?
I don't know if we could get Tacoma to drive all the way out here, but I gladly host them.
Yeah, now that because of
I-
COVID, the magic of Zoom has made everybody miraculously not know how to drive to places.
Is that what it is? No.
They save gas and they don't go in person. So I haven't heard of any meetings that were going to be in person, but they had kind of thrown the idea around because they wanted to be able to meet each other
Okay.
after COVID was over, but it never transpired.
Great. Councilmember Baldwin?
I'm so sorry, you probably want this meeting to end, but I have some other things. So I know that prior to Ryan Johnstone leaving, we were just kind of on the precipice of some talks about concerns with fluoride. And so he had talked about having a rep or some sort of person that we could get into some sort of debate with from Tacoma Water. And so was that, I'm sure that fell through a bit of a crack, but wanted to bring that up again so that conversation can continue. And then I was curious as well as to what are the updates. Are there any new updates in regards to Ryan's position and all that kind of business and things like that?
I can give you what I understand. So I'm still serving as the interim public service director. In my conversations with the mayor, John is on as well. He can jump in. But is that I would serve in that role right now until probably the end of the year till my term is up. And then the mayor and John would make a decision at that point. We have been able to hire a limited term planning manager who has come over and has basically took my role as the development services manager. So I'm not doing both roles right now. I'm solely acting as the director. And then we have a new planning manager that has come in to run the development services team.
Is your position that you have right now, is that, was that Ryan's former position?
Yes,
Okay, and then somebody has come in to do planning.
correct.
Okay.
My former position.
And then like which position is like higher than the other?
Ryan is the director. Ryan's position, and the position I feel now is the director, which is the highest position in the
Okay.
department. And then the planning manager I reported to Ryan as the development services manager.
Okay,
And we've brought in a limited term position to basically take over the work I would be doing
okay.
so that I can focus on being the director and basically filling the role that Ryan.
But the planning manager is not a permanent position, you said?
No, it would be limited term. And then when the final decision is made regarding my out of class status, whether I'm made the director or not made the director, then the development services position would be opened up for permanent selection.
And Mr. Vodopich, I think it might be available.
Yeah, he might have better answers. I'm trying to
Yeah,
speak from what I
I
understand.
know, yeah, it's kind of odd because, Jason is in that position now, so Mr. Vodopich or the mayor is probably more Mr. Vodopich.
Yeah, so the mayor has the authority to do a 1-year interim appointment, and that's what he did for Jason Sullivan to assume the role as the interim development services manager. Jason, I think that goes through January of 2025, I believe.
Yes.
And again, as Jason adequately explained, we brought in a person to fill Jason's vacant position as development services manager during the time that he's the interim public services director. So we are
This is
we
all-
are
yeah.
staffed right now with a director and then the development services manager at this time.
And this is all accordance to
Is the other person?
Yes.
Right. The council policy or actual council legislative authority is what they're following. So if the council wants to do something different with future positions, they should think about how that works out. Councilmember Fullerton?
Yeah, so I did actually do a follow-up with Ryan before he left on the Tacoma Water with their fluoride. their response to Ryan was in 1970, we took a vote and the citizens voted 70% that they wanted fluoride added to the water. Therefore, it's our ordinance or law in Tacoma, and we're not going to change it. But back in the 70s, to my point was they didn't have the knowledge or necessarily the transparency on the replications of fluoride being in the water and how harmful it was, and that it was a neurotoxin and it actually poisons people. So I was asking or wondering if there was a way for us to possibly meet with Tacoma City Council and see if we can get them to make an informed vote this time to inform the citizens of the harms of fluoride before they vote to have it remain in their water. Like if they have to take another vote in order to remove it, since it has been made a law or an ordinance, whatever Tacoma has. But I was wondering if I could go to a city council meeting at Tacoma and represent Bonney Lake or something and just say, hey, you guys, you need to get on it, because there's a lot of states and cities that are being sued over fluoride now.
Councilmember McClymons?
Yeah.
So I thought we had talked at CDC. Well, I know we talked at CDC and we had asked one to have our water tested to see
Yeah,
the
we're supposed to
level,
do that. Mhm.
the level of fluoride that is actually present, so we can inform the citizens what actually, how that is, right? And we need to do that in a couple of different areas, right? Because of where the Tacoma water feeds in. And then also, I thought we were going to try to define a way for people to go to one of our well sites that is before Tacoma water is in and get water that isn't, that is coming right out of our wells, in lieu of that, if they're very concerned about the fluoride, and giving them the ability to go get their water directly from the well.
Mhm.
Right, because so that one, it educates the public at what their exposure is, and two, it gives them an alternative that they could take advantage of
Mhm.
to get non-fluoridated water for drinking.
Right.
Right, it doesn't help for bathing, right, but it does help a little bit.
Perfect CDC issues, right?
Pardon me?
Perfect CDC stuff?
Yes,
Right,
exactly.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think, and that was
I
work in
think we
progress.
could-
I was there now, so.
I remember, like, we mentioned it at some point, but I don't remember hearing about the drinking water. So that would be
Oh,
before
okay.
I was chair. I don't know
Yes.
if I was
Yeah, that
on.
was like
Yeah.
last
So that was that
November.
before I got on the CDC.
Right.
I don't think we brought that
Ryan,
to
Ryan
council
was
for
there.
discussion.
I think that was
Yeah.
like one of the last meetings, Ryan.
Yeah.
But both, any of that stuff, I think you'd be able to work through CDC, right? Because definitely that testing thing is critical to get that done. I thought they were.
Yeah, I
in the
thought they were
process of
supposed to
doing
be
that.
testing. I do
They're
remember.
probably going to do that several times during the year at several different points, so you can get an idea of where that was at. But again, probably driven by CDC request or something like that at that council.
I do know that we have been doing the testing.
Yeah, so.
I don't have the results in my back
Right.
pocket, but
Yeah.
I do know we've been doing the test.
Can you bring the results at some point?
Yeah, we
so
can get it
that
on
know
a-
How much
Just-
fluoride is actually in our
we-
water?
We can get that on a CDC agenda.
Yeah.
Councilmember Ball?
This is becoming a serious issue, especially now with the other PFAS stuff that started coming down in December. So I think this is stuff we need to really kind of hammer down on if we have
And
to.
we're doing the PFAS testing right now as well.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And it would be, on the PFAS stuff too, it is kind of legislatively interesting why we continue to allow people to sell such products. But that's kind of a sidelight. I know I've asked at one point in time and they said, oh, you might not want to go there, because technically I would suspect that we could prohibit the sale of products containing PFAS, whatever it is, but that would be kind of interesting. Councilmember Walden?
Yes, that was gonna be the other thing that I brought up, with the PFAS, and you said that there's testing, like, when are we gonna know the results of that?
in my notes, I think that the testing was is occurring this week or next week.
It's probably going to be incredibly small, I predict, for us because we.
Yeah,
just
the
simply haven't-
PFAS testing is going to be occurring next week at all of our water sources, I think, except for Ballpark Well, which is kind of getting up and running right now. And then they would do the testing at the Ballpark Well once it's up and running.
Is there a plan for like notification if it's at a certain level, or is there a plan in place for
I
that?
don't know how that works. Does that work?
I think next steps is all going to depend on kind of what comes out of the
Testing?
testing results.
Okay. But you'll let us know right away.
Yeah, well, as soon as,
I've been wondering that ever since we had the conversation about.
Yeah, well,
contaminant.
yeah, we'll bring it back through the CDC.
Councilman,
I don't know how long it takes to get the results once we do the test.
Yeah.
So that's why I can look into that and have more information.
So the testing is incredibly expensive because
microscopic.
it's so prevalent that in order to create an environment where you're actually not polluting the sample you're getting is very difficult. And then the whole processing chain has to be, guaranteed as well. Because it's
For
for PFAS. It's so easy. It's on my coat, it's on your sweatshirt, right? It's probably on any synthetic material, tennis shoes, rain jackets. It's everywhere in our market. And so it's very hard to collect a sample and guarantee it doesn't get polluted before it's tested. So it's really expensive and hard to do. A lot of false positives in it. So I think we're probably going to be, a long journey of discovery with this.
Mhm.
I like the fact that we're testing, right? Because I decided not to because it was so expensive, right?
There are filters that remove it, though. You have to just make sure that it's
Mhm.
certified to do.
Do we have any other open discussion items? No. Councilmember Davis, nothing yet? No? Okay, very good.
We're sitting here absorbing.
No, you guys are fine. You guys are right. Excellent. Staff doesn't have anything, right? Alrighty, so I will open a adjournment, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Are we all adjourned? Okay, I will adjourn the meeting then. Thank you.
Councilmember Hubler.
But you won't, if you're concerned about it, but you won't make them